The one that is not being quickly dismissed, the Pacers. A lot of action there. Dustin Schuette's with me. He's with the Saturday Tradition. He's with me each Thursday. Big Pacers fan. We've been talking about this, but man, the Pacers, I think they have to look at their front office. When you put yourself, we were talking about when you extend a coach, fire him 2 weeks later, hire a coach, fire him after a year. Somebody's got that. There's too many millions of dollars being laid out for those kinds of decisions being made that obviously are not working and multiplied. And if you're anywhere else besides a mid-level place like Indiana, I don't see how a front office person keeps that job.
Well, I think the first thing is player personnel is the trickiest part of running an NBA franchise. And Indiana has done very well in that regard. And so from that standpoint, I think that what they've tried to do sometimes is they've tried to cover for circumstances that sometimes develop in the player personnel department by changing coaches when it really isn't necessary. And I think to an extent, it began when they removed Frank Vogel back, I think, in 2015. There was no need for it. There was no requirement. That team played hard for Frank. Look, if your guys don't play hard, if they don't play together, then you need a new coach. But if they do, then you probably don't. And I wrote back when Larry Bird announced the Frank Vogel dismissal that it was a mistake. Now they covered for that covered for that mistake by hiring a really terrific coach in Nate McMillan. And I again thought that his players played hard for him and they played together, and it wasn't necessary to remove him either. I don't believe in change for change's sake. I say that as someone who's followed the Pittsburgh Steelers for 50 plus years and who's seen that team have 3 different coaches during that period. And I believe in stability as a value as long as the players continue to connect with the coach in place. If they stop, the idea that people get tired of hearing the same voice is the most ridiculous. It's the second most ridiculous thing in sports. The most ridiculous thing in sports is the idea of taking a team that is consistently successful, but maybe not championship successful, and blowing it up. That's the dumbest thing in professional sports. But the second worst is, well, the players are tired of listening to the same voice. Look, the players aren't the same. They rotate in and out all the time. You might have one person or 2 people that happen to be the same people, but for the most part, personnel changes. So nobody gets tired of hearing the same voice. They either listen to that voice because it's effective, or they don't. And in the case of Vogel and McMillan, those voices were effective. They didn't need to change coaches. They've got to stop changing coaches for changing coaches' sake, because it's not that easy to find another Nate McMillan or another Frank Vogel. And the Pacers proved that by trying to make one of them out of Bjorkgren, and clearly it didn't work.
And Nate McMillan is clearly just showing them how bad it was. Of not having the patience of letting everything become a cohesive unit. And he's in the second round, and they're still playing. Go ahead, Dustin. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just gonna say, what you said. I've been on the Frank Vogel. I've gone to sleep at night with tears in my eyes back when he got let go, because I loved having Frank in Indiana. And I go back to that team in, I think, 2014, and they were the number 1 team. They had won like their first 12, 13 games or something like that. And then we have you bring in Andrew Bynum, which didn't make any sense to me. You brought in Evan Turner. I know you're trying to win a championship, but that team had chemistry, and all of a sudden it got not blown up, but you added pieces that didn't really make any sense to me. And then you obviously lose to the Heat in 6 games. So to the point is, I agree with you 100% on what you said about Frank Vogel, Nate McMillan. And the other thing that's interesting to me is there's this thought that if a coach isn't working after 3 years, or in this case, after 1 year, you have to make a change. But especially in the NBA, you're going to bring in somebody, you have no idea how the players are going to respond. So it's another, you could have another situation where you're going, below 500, you miss the playoffs. And so you're left at the same place basically that you were the year before.
Yeah, I think that the Pacers' number one problem right now is they have to find out, and maybe they know, maybe it was a financial thing. I don't know the answer to this, Dustin. Why didn't Paul George want to play here? Why didn't Victor want to stay? I mean, Victor was like the king of Indiana for as long as he was here, and all of a sudden he decided he didn't want to be here anymore. Why are players willing to stay in Portland or in San Antonio, but the elite player that happens to wind up here doesn't want to stay? I think that's a question that the fans have a right to understand. And I don't know if it is Pacers say no to that level of contract or whether there's something else, but I don't see any reason why someone like a Dame would be content to play in Portland, or someone like Tim Duncan would play his entire career in San Antonio. But Victor Oladipo, who played in college here, who came here and became a star only because he was here. Before he was here, he was not a star, and he was a very good player. He became a star because he came here, and then all of a sudden it wasn't good enough for him. And I think that I would like to know why that happened.